I love having students in here. Well, ulterior motive to get some praise. That's good. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Nick. I'm one of the pastors here at St. Mark's Community Church, and I'm always excited to be up here. It's an election year. Yep. And so your inboxes, your mailbox, voicemails, news feeds, everywhere is political ads, candidates trying to tell you what they're about, what they stand for, how they're going to fix your problems, how they're going to run the country, whatever it may be. It's a lot, yeah? So I figured this morning, I've got 30 minutes, so I'm just going to tell you how to vote. I got a big response from the 9 o'clock, too. I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that at all. Actually, I was thinking about, we're in this middle of this series on Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is a big deal for Jesus, because it's kind of this moment where his ministry is starting, and it's this kind of this big moment in front of a big crowd, and he's going to start laying out some of the things that, hey, this is what I'm about. This is how I see the world. This is what I'm going to do, to fix it, whatever it might be. He's trying to get followership, Like he's trying to gain followers. He's trying to get what he is about out, and that's kind of what our candidates are doing, right? Like our candidates are going, they're speaking at town halls and barns and coffee shops and coliseums, and they're going around and they're trying to convince you of what they are about, and they painstakingly, over every word, of that speech, they make sure exactly what they want to say. And there's a moment in the show The Chosen where I think it's season 2, where Jesus, there's over a few episodes where they kind of show him preparing for this Sermon on the Mount, and you kind of see him in the background of some scenes, and he's like going through the lines, and he's blessed, and he's like, and it's like he's trying to get that perfect thing, and it really shows. It's really cool. It shows Jesus' kind of humanity. But it also shows how intentional these words are, right? And how they're not by accident, these words that we have. So, now, I will say this, though, that some of the words in the Sermon on the Mount, if you've read it, it's not exactly winning friends and influencing people, right? He could use some advice from a good publicist, maybe get Mr. Beast on the phone to figure out how to get more followers, to smash that subscribe button, be bought in, because he says things like, if your eyes are making you sin, gouge them out. It's not. I don't know what survey group he studied, but with Jesus, he does have miracles though, right? Like I always feel like the rabbis were thinking this is a little bit of an unfair advantage. Right, that Jesus, he's got followers, but he's got miracles, right? Sure, you feed 5,000 people, is that some kind of campaign violation, maybe of some sort, right? And the other rabbis are like, I didn't even think to bring snacks. That maybe would have helped me get some more followers, right? But in all seriousness, though, this is a very important kind of moment for Jesus. And other rabbis are doing the same thing, right? They're kind of laying out what they believe, right? And in particular about this Old Testament law. Law was given to the Israelites a long time ago. God entrusted them with it, and prophets and teachers have come after that saying, hey, this, God's kingdom is coming and is promised, and we have this law, and here's the problem, is the law has fallen short. And it's not, something's missing. You ever make a recipe and you leave something out and you're like, something's just not right. Something's missing. And so in just a few moments, Jesus is going to kind of go through a couple of these laws, and this would have been exactly what the rabbis would have done. But hey, you've heard this law. Well, let me tell you how I interpret it. Let me tell you how you can apply this to your lives. And they would kind of banter kind of back and forth and stuff like that. So that's kind of a little bit what Jesus is doing right here. And but Jesus is different, though, than, politicians who are trying to legislate our behavior and legislate our government. More so, Jesus is not in that business. He's in the business of life transformation. And so Jesus is going to answer this question today of how God's kingdom is coming to earth. So we started first week, Jesus talked about, who is going to be in God's kingdom? And the Beatitudes, and then he talks about, what is our kind of kingdom posture, toward the culture around us, this salt and light. And Pete talks about how it's just this posture of surrender, of laying down kind of your life for others and being that salt and light to them. And then last week, I encourage you again, if you have not heard this message, you need to go back and listen to it. I'm going to feel like this is a continuation of this message, but Jesus starts his kind of dissertation on the law. And he starts kind of talking about how this is coming short. And he says that I didn't come to abolish the law, but he came to fulfill the law. Right? And everyone's thinking, is he going to add something to the law? He's going to take something away. He's going to come in, he's going to take his red marker, he's going to tweak it, and it's going to work out. And Jesus said, that's not what I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to fulfill the law. I'm going to complete it, but not by adding new laws. So Jesus starts with a couple of hot topics, again, just kind of like a campaign, speech. Like, I'm going to talk about the hot topics of the day, right? Like he talks about murder, and he talks about adultery, and he talks about divorce, and he kind of gives kind of dissertation and on that, and he says, "You've heard it said," and then he talks about it. So we've got two or three laws today that I want us to talk about, that Jesus can introduce. So I want to first just going to introduce the laws to you, the three, and then I'm going to give my own kind of dissertation on them. I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I want to, we're going to read what Jesus spoke about them. All right, first one, real easy. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a, yes. Yeah, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. This is classic balancing of the scales. This is called the law of retaliation, right? Meaning, if something is taken from me, I am guaranteed that person will pay me back what they took, okay? It's this balancing of the scales on that, right? Here's what's interesting about this Old Testament law is that it was not intended to protect the victim. Instead, it was intended to protect the perpetrator, the criminal. You see, it was intended to limit the retaliation that a victim could take against their perpetrator, right? In short, it ensured that the punishment matched the crime. And so, it is, which is interesting. And so, but which is great. So it's a kind of a, you see this in all kind of justice, logos and on walls, and it's just kind of this balance in the scales, and it works really well. And we can govern it, we can regulate it, it's a great way to kind of run society. But it has some problems, though. Right? For one, is you can't always quantify someone's emotional damage or their wounds or their trauma or their anger. This is really difficult to do. And the second is that it says nothing and does nothing for this broken relationship between the victim and the perpetrator. It says nothing about how that's going to be fixed, certainly repayment of property is good and it's great, but it doesn't always heal wounds and emotional scars. And then, of course, it says nothing and does nothing for the life of the criminal. It doesn't ensure that that person will change, that they won't do that again. So it's a great law, and it's something that that just about every society has, but really difficult to be complete. Second one is this. Second one is that Jesus says, have you heard it said, love your neighbor? Now, this one is a little bit surprised that he brought it up because honestly, this is he had a slogan, in his political campaign. It might be this one. It might be love your neighbor. So I'm sure when he started in on this one, love your neighbor, and they're like, wait a minute. Like what? This is good. This is a good thing. Like we're all bought into this one, right? The problem is that the Jewish leaders and teachers have added a kind of addendum, added something to it, right? They said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. So, natural reaction for this would be, well, we don't want to hate anyone, right? But their thought was that if you loved some, then you had to hate others, right? That's just kind of the way they thought. And this is honest. Here's some good things about this. And one is that it separates the people that I choose to love or I need to love and the people that I don't have to worry about and I don't have to love. Okay? It puts this kind of dividing wall between the us and the them. Like it puts, I want to move into the neighborhoods that these people live in, but I don't want to move into neighborhoods that these people live in. And it keeps us safe. It's a logical reaction to not like someone or hate someone or match the emotion that if someone comes up to you who you hate, right? It's a natural reaction to do that. Not only does it kind of give us a us and them, but it defines kind of who my enemy is. Now, enemies can come in all kinds of different shapes and forms. You just had Vitaly on here, and just amazing that his story is much different than most, right? When he hears that command, or the command to hate your enemies or love your enemies, it means different. But, enemies can also be people that don't think like me, that don't look like me, that don't, their value systems aren't the same as mine, and so they clash, right? That can be kind of encroaching on my way of life, the way I want to raise my family, the way I want my society to be. And also, the problem is that now I only love those who love me back. And if you're married or have been married, you know that you can't even find one person in this world that will always love you or love you back, right? Like you're soon fine once you get into marriage, and my wife and I talk about this with couples all the time, is that you'll soon find that other person has a different agenda than you, right? Especially when it comes to laundry and how they fold things, or maybe it comes to dishes and how they're done, or what it means is it's like all of a sudden you're like, what is happening? It's like sleeping with the enemy. Crazy people. Who does that? And the problem is also, though, it leaves people out. It leaves people out of community. The last law is this, super easy, super good. Everyone agree with this one. No one's going to not agree with this one. It's give to the needy. Absolutely good. Every society needs some sort of law like this, and I would imagine no one in here would argue that that's a good thing. This command is a great thing. Great thing. No one would say, now we may argue back and forth about how it might be done, but the fact that it needs to be done is usually not questioned. But Jesus is going to give us a clue. He's going to give us a clue in his commentary on this that shows us how he is bringing God's kingdom to earth. So here's what I expect of Jesus now. We've laid out these laws. Here's what I expect of Jesus. I expect Jesus to come in and, again, with that red pen and start fixing things about this law. Or maybe he's going to start, okay, look, we're going to give you a checklist. This is how you do this. This is how we make society better. It's going to be all these things that I know exactly what I can do, what I should do to help, what I should do to bring God's kingdom. Unfortunately, it's not exactly what he does. So let's read in Matthew chapter 5. Oh, wrong one. Here we go. All right. Chapter 5, verse 38. You have heard that it is said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who asks to borrow from you. So at first glance, honestly, this feels not possible. This feels like an impossible task, right? Just the very first line, don't resist an evil person. Give to anyone who asks from you, give to them. And if Jesus was operating in this, I'm going to make a list of laws and I'm going to put them on a wall and everyone's going to look at them, everyone's going to see them, and this is exactly what you're going to do, then if he was operating that way, then it might be pretty concerning. But that's not exactly Jesus' point here. So let me explain. I'm not going to explain every instance on this, but let me explain one instance. So when he says, if you're slapped on the right cheek, turn the other cheek to them. So in that day, it was for a Roman custom to kind of disrespect someone. You were to slap them. You would slap them with the back of your right hand. Well, that would be across the right cheek, okay? And essentially what you're doing is it's a sign of dominance. It's a sign of disrespect, of dehumanizing someone. And so Jesus says, when someone does this to you, he says you get up and you offer them your left cheek. And that's just sounds crazy, but here's why he does it. Now if I'm going to attack you, I'm going to have to attack you with an open hand. I'm going to have to attack you like an equal. And so the hope is this willing sacrifice of my vengeance. I'm not going to retaliate. I'm going to freely offer you this other side, but I'm going to stand up and it can kind of raise my humanity. Hopefully this affects the person's heart and changes them is the hope. And every one of these has a very similar story. And every one of these instances that he talks about, you can look them up. It's very similar. But it's all about a willing sacrifice, opening the door for peace and for change. Second, love your enemy. So you've heard it said that love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise in the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So I would be a little bit confused because I thought loving your neighbor was pretty good. I thought we were like, that you had told us to do that, that's what we're doing, loving my neighbor, got it. And Jesus is saying, love has no limits, though. Love has no limits. And he uses this illustration of how God sends rain on the evil and the good. The sun shines just the same for a criminal as it does for a victim. And he's using this as God's unlimited love to stir us into thinking, okay, well, what does it require of me? And look, this is a good thing. This is really good. The fact that love has no limits, that's why we're sitting here now, right? Because we were once enemies of God, and now look where we are, sons and daughters. So this is a very good verse, but it does still, especially both of these instances, are still giving me a little bit of heartburn, right? A little bit of indigestion about Jesus has not really told me what to do yet. Like he hasn't given me that list of, okay, this is exactly what you do in every situation. And the point is that I don't think that Jesus ever intended to do this. He never intended to give us this law 2.0. Like he never intended to add and extend the law and regulate every area of our life. That's not what he's wanting to do. The first law with Moses, God commanded Moses, he said, write this law. He said, I'm going to give you this law. He said, write it on the stone. He wrote it on the stone. And it was displayed for everyone to see. Hey, this is the standard by which we live. This is how you do it. And like, got it. I can see that. It's on the wall. Everyone can point to it. But Jesus' way is different. Jesus' way is not written on any wall. It's not written on any book. If Jesus were to give his commentary on every single law, the books would be stacked high, but he doesn't. Instead, they're not written in any book or on a wall. They're written on our heart. So we have a home. I have a home with 3 kids in it. And so in my home, we try to parent them. My wife and I do. And I do say try, because it's just, this is what it is. You just try. I don't know. We try to parent them. And one of the things that, we tell them is that one day you're going to learn to parent yourself, okay? Like, so, we try to guide them, we try to help them, we try to, make sure that they get to school on time, and school's a priority, and, and respect is a priority, but there's little things like, hey, you need to pick up after yourself, and did you remember your trumpet for school, and then did you get your water bottle, and all these things, right? Look, I told my kids, I do not want to parent you all my life. It is not fun for me. It's just not. I can barely parent myself, okay? Let's just be honest, much less parent you. So we say a lot in our house, especially when, did you remember your trumpet? Yeah, Dad, I remember it. Okay. Make sure you're parenting yourself, or when they forget something or when they do something wrong, it's like, why'd you tell me to do it, Dad? I said, because one day you're going to have to parent yourself. It's called being an adult. It's not all that fun. But the hope is, though, that they're not going to have to call me, in the middle of the day to ask me questions about things that I've already taught them. That's the hope, right? The hope is that they would have learned that they no longer need me as a parent. They're not calling me up, every moment that they have a question about something. And the hope is that they can discern and be wise. And that's the way Jesus is kind of laying this out. He said, Jesus says, I'm not going to give you this long list of all the to-dos. I'm not going to add to them. I'm not going to give you the don'ts. He said, no longer are you going to be asking, what does the law require of me? Now I'm going to change the question. And the question now will be, what does love ask of me? Well, that is an open-ended question, right? And so Jesus gives these radical examples of love, okay? Now, is he laying it out saying, look, every time someone asks for you something, you need to give it to them? Every time someone disrespects you, you just need to take it. Every time someone, slaps you on the face, you need to turn the other way. That's not what he's saying. This is not a call from Jesus to be a pacifist. It's a call from Jesus. He said, I'm not giving you all the rules. I'm not giving you everything spelled out. Instead, we're going to change the question. I'm going to ask, what does love require of me? Two things about what love requires, what love asks me to do. One is sacrifice. Sacrifice what? Everything. Super simple. Very simple. Love requires sacrifice of everything. So my family and I went tubing down the Dan River a few weeks ago. And if you've ever done this, you drive up to this top of the, well, it's not the top, I guess, but I guess it has to be the top if it flows down. Whatever. The top of the river, and then you get in these tubes, and then they pick you up at the bottom and take you back to your car. And so we're in these tubes, and we're going down the river. And the guy told us before we get in, he said, look, there are parts of this river that are like ankle deep, knee deep. Okay, but there are other parts of this river that are over your head, like really, really deep. Okay, so just be knowledge of that as you kind of go down and do this. Well, we get in the river, and there's 5 of us in 5 different tubes. And it takes all of about 3 seconds for every one of us to go some way different, right? and for kids to start freaking out, mama's freaking out. It's like, my baby's over there, and all that. It's like they're all going to one place. I think it's fine, but it's okay, whatever. So we get there, and we're just about getting to this one rapid, and there's a kid that is panicking. So just about getting this rapid, so I was like, I'm going to go over there and help them, and so I tip myself over, and my feet fall in, and I expect at some point that I would hit the ground. I think this is like the abyss. I never hit the ground. And so I'm over my head, and I pull up on my raft, Of course, I didn't take the life vest, of course not. And so a little bit shocked, a little bit surprised, but I make my way over, help the child out and everything. And then we tie all the floats together. Smart. But here's the point: is that at any point on that river, going down that river, if one of my family members was in danger and needed me, I would not even think about testing how deep that water was before I went in, right? I just wouldn't do it, because that's not what love does, right? Love does not ask, what does it cost? Love just does. The point is, I love my kids and my wife, and I'm going to go and help however I can. So when we say that love requires sacrifice of everything, I say, well, how much? Everything. Well, that's a little bit much, isn't it? It is a lot. But how do I know? This goes back to my thing of how much though? Can you just write it down exactly how much that situation would cost me, and how do I know I'm truly loving someone? How do I know I'm truly, loving sacrificially? How do I know? Give me a number, something. But here's the thing. Sometimes it will require knee-height sacrifice. And then sometimes you fall down in over your head. And that's just the way love goes. That's just the way love is. But it doesn't ask how deep. It just does. And that's what Jesus is saying for us. Second thing is this: love asks that I choose to sacrifice. Love asks that I choose to sacrifice. Now, this is really important. And so I'm going to read our other verse here. This is in Matthew chapter 6. And here's where I think Jesus says, it kind of gives us this clue of how he's building his kingdom, right? A clue of how he's doing this. It says this. It says, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. So that if you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you that they have received the reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Jesus says there's anything done, any good deed, any righteousness done, not out of the motivation of love is not complete. It falls short. Give me an example. It's not tax season, but everyone here pays taxes, right? We all like to pay taxes. No one likes to pay taxes, right? But here's the thing. Obviously, our government does a lot of good things for a lot of good people, right? There's a lot of good things that the government does with our tax money that helps people, helps our society, helps people in need. Very good thing. But let me ask you, does paying your taxes, think about this, does paying your taxes produce in you a generous heart? No. Why? Because you're forced to do it. It's not motivated out of love. It's not motivated into coming from a heart that sees a need and wants to meet it. No, it's coming out, you're forced to do it. Jesus says you're not going to get this radical, crazy kind of loving ways that goes beyond this written law. You're not going to get those unless it's motivated by love. For instance, if I tell my kid, let's say it's a daughter maybe, to go and pick up the socks under her bed, of course, she will be like, ooh, because that's what you have to do if you're a teen. And she goes up there and she picks up the socks under her bed, puts them in the laundry. But upon removing the socks, she discovers that there's a sandwich under there that has been under there for like 3 months. What do you think she would do? Leave it there is what she would do. I'm like, well, I don't understand. Why would you not remove the stinky sandwich from underneath the bed? Well, I wasn't asked to do it. You didn't tell me to do it. This happens all the time, right? I wasn't asked to do it. And this is where my kingdom and God's kingdom clash. Because my kingdom says, okay, I want to know exactly what I need to do, God, to please you. I want to know exactly what I need to do in every situation. And I want to know the limit on that. Like, just tell me. So that I can go right up to it, right? And Jesus says, we're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore. It's not what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. Everything. Motivated out of love. Everything. And because what happened is this. Is when you live a sacrificial life motivated out of love, unlike paying your taxes, when you give to someone in need, motivated out of love, it changes your heart. It gives you a generous heart. That when you sacrifice retaliation, AKA forgive someone, what are you rewarded with? Peace. That does not come from retaliation. And again, this is not commentary on how our society should be run from a government level. This is just what Jesus is saying for his citizens. He says, this is how I'm going to build my kingdom. It says, love put into each heart of the citizen of this kingdom. And it's going to be in them that I produce this, and through them that I produce this kingdom. That's going to be for them. One last verse, and then we're going to go. Also, is there a limit to love? How creative love can be? Parents, I'm sorry, I'm a parent. I don't know what to tell you. I remember when my kids were small, it was much easier to wow them. But just with breakfast, right? Like when you fix breakfast for your kids, you like make little hearts, put little sprinkles on it. Right? You don't just throw like eggs in front of them or plain pancakes. No, you want to like creative ways to show that that you're loved and they matter. There's just no limit to how creative love can be. So here's what Jesus said. He told them another parable. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree so that birds come, perch in its branches. Jesus says, look, here's how my kingdom is going to come to earth. It's like a seed of love is planted in each of its citizens that grows through this self-sacrificing life and expands into this creative, loving community. Jesus' kingdom is not going to be known for how it's governed, what rules and what laws are in place, but about who is in that kingdom, how they act. Jesus says they're going to know who I am because of the way you love each other. There's not a list of all the things of how to be a Jesus follower. It's written on our hearts. It's in us. It's becoming through us, and it's for us. And that's a good thing. Let's pray. God, there is no limit to love. There's no limit to how much you love us, God. And when we wrap our head around how great your love is, God, when we let it seep into us, when we abide in that love and meditate and think about it, about your forgiveness in our lives, God, it only motivates us to love. And there's not a list of how to love, posted on a wall, because that would limit it. God, but there's not enough walls to cover the amount of love and creative ways that God, you want us to sacrifice and love. Just show me how to love God in that way. Love you. Amen.